Coming up in today's podcast.
I imagine if it were me in that situation, I'd be worried all the time about overstepping the boundaries and suddenly having the shutters come down. You obviously didn't, and that's credit to you, or your family were receptive, but that would always be the worry, wouldn't it? That you've just gone that little bit too far and they say, right, Helen, I think you need to leave now. There's always that at the back of your head, isn't there?
There is, absolutely. And, there were a few sort of odd moments, Dad made me a cup of coffee one day and I was drinking it in the bedroom, because I used to just lie in the bed or sit next to Mum every day. So usually how I spent time with her. And so he came up with a cup of coffee for me, and Mum was just about to take a tablet, and she said, oh well, I can't take this tablet if Helen's going to have a coffee.
Welcome to the Get a Life podcast. Explore survivor stories. Uncover the hidden truths. Join our X-Cult conversations. You matter, and so does your story.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Get a Life podcast, X-Cult Conversations. We're here with Helen for part 2 of her story. I'm Jackie Hart, and I'm an ex-member of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, who is formerly known as the Exclusive Brethren. And I have my friends with me today.
Hi, I'm Ross Turner. I was local in Peterborough. Glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Gilly. I was formerly in Birmingham, UK.
And Helen, when we broke off from part 1, you were talking about your grandmother's funeral and what a lovely time you'd had with your family and a nice relationship at that point in time. This is about 2002, 3?
That's right.
2002. Yeah. You also mentioned at that time that you were at university. You finally got there. So tell us a little bit more about your journey to get into studying as a mature student and how that came about and what you did.
Yeah, well, in part 1, I talked about how when I was at school, I thought that was going to be a pathway. So I was really determined to try and set myself up as best I could in getting qualifications to get myself entry, and I stayed on to do A-levels in preparation. However, a lot was happening at that time, and I realised actually what I needed to do was work. And also I had no idea what I wanted to study and really what I wanted to do long term. So having that break and stepping out and doing other jobs, and I got married and I had a child. I had a really good neighbour at the time who one of the places that we were living, my neighbour was a paediatric nurse, and she loved her job. She would talk about it frequently, and I remember thinking, well, that sounds a really good job to do. So I looked into becoming a nurse, and when I looked into it a bit more, I found that there were lots of other opportunities around health, including being a midwife. And when I went to have a look at, went to meet with the university to talk about potentially doing a course, they talked about, well, these are the entry requirements. And I looked through the entry requirements and I found that I had exactly what I needed for university entry. All that work I did previously at school in endeavouring to do as well as I could and get as many qualifications as I could, had really still put me in good stead to then go into university. And that's what I did. I actually went and did a 3-year midwifery course. It took me a while. I think that what I say even to my kids now is, don't worry if you don't know what to do straight away. Have a think. Go do some other work, do some other jobs, look around and talk to other people and find out what careers that interest you, because there's so many opportunities. And outside, you are not limited by your gender, by your age, and you can take your time and determine what it is, the pathway that you want to go into. When I started my career, or even my university course, I remember thinking, this is it. This is exactly where I wanted to be, what I needed to do. And it's been an incredibly fulfilling career, and it's really taken me into some really interesting avenues around that career to now working in a very senior level. But it's been incredible, and I think anybody thinking of any insiders there, just try and get all your qualifications together now and work as hard as you can. You might be limited as to what you can do in a Brethren school, but there's still, any certificates will be really worthwhile. And don't think about making your mind up straight away.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I did a similar thing and went back to education in my 30s. And I worked as a dental nurse, and we had an optional, we could qualify for it. But the qualification, I was in the Brethren at the time, meant an evening class on a Monday, which meant missing the prayer meeting. And my first thought was, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. I'd missed the prayer meeting. And I remember quite clearly my mother saying, it's for 18 months, you're missing the prayer meeting, you're doing the qualification. Had she not said that, I would not have been able to have had the qualifications, the requirements to apply for my studies in my 30s, that again, like you, took me further. So I think I'd reiterate that the education is important, and you never know when you might need to call on those qualifications, and how they could stand you in good stead in the future. But I'd also say, and I think you'd agree, Helen, that even if you do leave school without many qualifications, there are, particularly in the UK, there's plenty of opportunities to repeat GCSEs, repeat A levels, and to do foundation higher access courses as a mature student, so that, you know, going on and doing a career of your choice is an option. But you're right, I think a lot of people don't know. Certainly I didn't know at 16, 17, nobody knows what you want to do. Yeah. So you worked midwife, I guess, in the NHS for a while.
I did. So I had a brilliant career, and it was, I really enjoyed it. And I think this is almost like a passport. Your qualifications, I think, are a passport into, you know, other careers. So they're really important to get. But the opportunities, as you say, Jackie, once you're out, are absolutely endless regarding getting new qualifications if you didn't get them at school. And I think gone are the days when you necessarily, when you do A levels and then you do a degree at 21, if you decide to go back to education later in life, there's so many. I mean, I work in education now as well, in medical education, and there are so many avenues where you can do it as a mature student. It's never too late, is it? No, absolutely not.
Never. No. So how old were you when you graduated? Were you?
I was 35. No, sorry, 33. I think when I graduated.
I was 36. So never too old.
No, that's right.
Well done you. And then you subsequently moved to Australia and worked over there, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2012, I was offered a job here in Australia. So my husband was due to leave the Air Force, and it seemed like a great idea. And so we packed up and moved out here, started work in a hospital in Sydney. And it's just been incredible time, and we absolutely love it here.
I really enjoy it there. That's fantastic. It's nice, and it's nice that, you know, you think back to your childhood, which was a happy one, then the sort of traumas you went through of having to leave on your own, that what you've forged for yourself since then has been so fulfilling. I mean, that's really nice, isn't it? With your,
it really, it definitely does. I think going into careers and into whether or not you go to university or you go into higher education, but you're working outside, it does give you another level of, I think, confidence as well. You're talking and you're communicating, you're learning how to communicate, you're learning how to critically think. In university, for the very first time, I learned how to think critically, and I was taught to question. I'd never really questioned anything before, unless it was in a very argumentative way. And so being able to think rationally and critically, and able to support an argument with, you know, but respectfully was something definitely I had to learn.
That sort of critical thinking is not something that is taught, when it's something that's actively discouraged. I mean, wasn't that the reason why the Brethren discouraged university? Is that right? It sort of taught you to use your natural mind and your critical thinking. Whereas actually it's a gift that's great to use, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To have
absolutely.
So you also said about you'd had this relationship with your parents at the time your grandmother died, and they saw your children. How has your relationship with your family been in latter years? since then?
So I guess they've really tried, I think, and I think we've tried. I don't think my children have really ever had a close relationship with my parents, which is really unfortunate. It was something I was really hoping would happen, but there's just been too much, I think, distance, physical and emotional distance between them. It's not really happened. My parents have been very appreciative and they've enjoyed seeing them, but it's been quite sort of, I would say, a polite type of relationship. I think it's had its challenges in that respect, but they've always sent cards and gifts for their birthdays every year, which has been really lovely. And I think that's so that's been really nice. And
after that time you saw your parents with your children, did the children see them much after that, or did that end up being the one-off? Or
no, so we were seeing each other a fair amount, I would say, in the years 2002, 2003, which is the years, I would say those sort of years were, we did see quite a bit of each other, and then it sort of stretched out a little bit longer. But in the years up until we left Australia, it would have been 10 years from I think the review until we left Australia, we saw them frequently during every year. We would go and visit, go and see them on a weekend, and we'd write through phone. So there was still, and it was still a really lovely, I guess, just a very pleasant, lovely relationship. What happened after my grandmother died was that then everybody was, a lot of ex-Peeves were getting these apologies. And so I sort of reached out to my dad and I said, so am I going to get an apology? And I can't remember what he said now. But all of a sudden I get a letter from the Peeves. I get an apology letter from the Peeves, and it's a really interesting letter, and I'll read it. Wow. I've still got it here.
Yeah.
It was sent on June 2003, 2003. So the letter, I could maybe even share it if you like, so you can read it with me.
You ought to, read it out. Be interesting to see what it says.
Yeah, okay. So it says, Dear Helen, it is with humility and chastened spirits that we write you this letter. The Lord Jesus has stirred us up to look into the way you were treated in 1983, 84, and 85, and to reconsider the basis for your withdrawal from fellowship in early 1985. We have to acknowledge to our God and Saviour, the Lord Jesus, that we failed to reflect his grace as it has been shown to us towards you at that time, in compassion, sympathy, and help, or in an understanding of the struggles of youth during one of the most difficult periods of our lives. In brief, we were wrong to withdraw from you. We were also wrong in the way we abandoned and ignored you afterwards, leaving you without hope, quite contrary to the way God would leave us. We now acknowledge this to you, as well as expressing our sorrow for the grief caused at that time. But what a comfort! We may fail, but God cannot. In God's providential care and mercy, he has given you a husband and family, and who knows, in his untraceable ways, what God will yet do for you and for us all. Yours sincerely, and with warm regards, 2 signatures from 2 priests, and then on behalf of the Brethren of Watford.
Wow. Did you respond?
I was not impressed.
Yes.
I
can imagine.
Impressed.
Yeah.
I was not impressed at all.
No.
I was straight onto the phone to my dad and said, where is my apology? Well, firstly, where's my apology from the priest that shut me up?
Yes.
And why does it not say, but we should, this is what we're going to do, or what the next steps were going to be? What about saying, I'm sorry that, we separated you from your family and we ripped your family apart. That's what I really wanted to say. And then what we're going to do about it now going forward. But there's not. It was just there was nothing. No. It was just a nothing letter to me.
Yeah.
So I demanded to meet with the priest that shut me up, and Dad said that was just not possible. Didn't go into any reason, but he said that was just not possible. And I said, well, but he said, you can meet with some other brethren. And I said, no, I don't want to meet with anybody else. It was them or nothing. He said, well, you can meet with me. And I said, I've got no problem with you, Dad. I'm not, that's not it. But he said, well, that's your choice, really, Helen, you know. It's so I then decided, I said, I've got some questions and I want them answered. So in the end, I decided to go and meet with my dad, and my mum was there, and my older sister, who still lives at home. And I took my list of questions. And I usually keep everything, but I don't have my list of questions. I would like to have known what I asked because I can't really remember. My dad gave me a heartfelt apology for what had happened, and he was very tearful. So was my mum. My dad also said at the time, and they've sort of held this. I mean, this was 2003. They've held this all through the years as well. And they said to me that we don't expect you to come back. We're not going to ask you to come back. You've got your life outside. You've got a husband. You've got a family. You've got your life, and you've got a good life. And we're not here to persuade you to come back. And they've never done that. And it's so that has had a huge impact on our relationship in the years following as well, because I've never felt and there's any I'm not sort of second guessing or thinking there's an ulterior motive in any of our contacts. It's just been what it is, and I've been really grateful for that. I came away from that meeting with my parents, although I've seen them a few times. This was different. This was, it was a sort of a task sort of meeting, really, that we were going to come to they were going to answer some questions. But like I said, it was a bit like the letter. I came away thinking, well, I'm not sure really I got much out of that. And I certainly didn't hold any sort of grudge with my dad as we move forward. But yeah, so over the years, between that time and into 2012, there's a lot of contact, and it was, life went on. I think we sort of settled into a bit of a rhythm, because up until there it's like, well, what does this contact mean, how it's going to look in the future? But we sort of settled into a rhythm that has been very comfortable, I think, for both of us. I've been very aware of their comfort level, and I've been sort of quite respectful of that, and I found as the years has gone on, it's actually suited me too. So that's worked really, really well. Just before we left to go to Australia, we went down to see them, told them we were going, because I'd sort of held back telling them, and I didn't really think it would make too much difference, because it's not as if we would go and see them every month. But yeah, they were pretty upset. We were going. Mum was worried about whether or not she'd see us again, and she said, we've got some Bibles, would you mind if we gave your children a Bible? I didn't really want them to have a Jane Bible, but I felt like I couldn't say that. So I said yes.
His reaction was actually that of a perfectly normal mother's reaction, sort of, but actually, I'm going to miss you, and when will we see you again? It's a normal reaction, isn't it? If a decides to go,
for sure. It was really nice. So we moved out, and then the following year we were having some contact still. I didn't have their email address. It was just phone. It was letters still. And my dad phoned out of the blue in 2013, sort of late 2013, and said that Mum had been diagnosed with leukemia. He was having some treatment, and it looks like they could treat it, but if it came back again, there was be little that they could do. So I was pretty shocked about this. In early 2014, I was due to go to a conference in Prague, and I was going to go to the UK as well. And I spoke to my dad and said, I'd really like to come and see Mum. I'd like to see if there's something I can do. Can I take her to an appointment? Can I take her shopping? Or can I do some cooking? Or can I do something for her, while she's undergoing the treatment? So he wasn't quite sure. It was, I don't know what you can do. So I said, well, just anything at all. And then, but in the end, she did have a chemo appointment at the time I was going to be there. So he said, okay, you can take her. So I hired a car, went to pick her up, took her to the hospital, stayed with her while she had her infusion. And then I dropped her off and I said, can I come and see you tomorrow? She said, yeah. She said, I usually have a really good day the day after I've had my treatment. So she said, actually, it'd be a good day. I said, okay, I'll come down. I went back and I took her out. We went shopping.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Normality
normal,
almost.
I know.
Which is lovely.
It was really lovely. Really lovely.
Yeah.
And I went back and she seemed to be getting better, went into remission, but very soon later on that year she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and very aggressive cancer. She had some surgery, but it was really quite far advanced, so all they were able to do was really give her chemo just to halt the progression of the disease. So she had that and she was deteriorating during 2015. So then that sort of set off quite a, I don't know, sort of mind-blowing period of time really with them. Towards the end of 2015, she went into hospital, and then again at Christmas time to have some life-saving surgery. And my dad called me straight away. It was very unusual because when Mum went into hospital, she frequently did go in. He'd leave it a few weeks. I don't know whether he forgot to tell me or what, but he would. But after Christmas in late 2015, he phoned me straight away and said, she was very, very sick and she's had this surgery. And I said, well, maybe I think I should come and see her. I should come over and see her. And he said, no, absolutely not. You don't need to come. Mum came on the phone. She said, no, I'm not going anywhere yet. I'm fine. Don't come over. And then she went back into hospital again in early January. And I said, oh, this sounds really bad. I think I should come. I should come over. And again, they said, no, don't. And I said, well, do you mind if I reach out and speak to your consultant? Find out what's happening. And they gave me permission. I was quite surprised, but they did give me permission. So I was able to contact them. And that's when the consultant wrote back and said, look, it's just comfort, there's nothing further we can do for your mum. It is just comfort measures now. So I saw that. I came home that evening. I booked a ticket. I booked an Airbnb just around the corner from my parents. And then I phoned my dad and I said, just to let you know, I'm coming. I booked. I'm coming. Well, I'm not saying he wasn't displeased. I don't think he was displeased, but he was he was very, very surprised. And I said, well, what's your intention? I said, well, it's just to spend as much time as I can to see Mum. I'll do whatever you need. I can cook, I can clean, I can take you to appointments, whatever you need. I'm there to help. So he said, well, I don't know what you can do because your brother and your younger sister are here and they've been here looking after, and so you'll have to work in with what they're doing. And, can you give me a timetable of when you're going to be available? I said, no, because I'm going to be available for the whole 2 weeks. So any days, you choose a day. So 2 days before I was due to fly, because I think I booked about 5 days I was going to fly in 5 days time. 2 days beforehand, he emailed me and said, would you like me to pick you up from the airport? So I said, no, thank you.
Yes, please.
I've actually booked a car because I wanted to be able to travel around, so I booked a car for the period of time.
Right.
But he said, okay, well, give me a call when you get to your place, which I did. And he said, yeah. As soon as I landed, I had a text from him. He said, or an email. He said he'd tracked my flight. He could see that I'd landed. As soon as I get, please call straight away, which I did. And he said, you can come over whenever you want this afternoon. So that was on the Monday of the first week. Went around there and saw Mum. She was incredible. Looked very, very unwell. And I was there till about 8 o'clock at night, and my younger sister, had already gone back to Scotland, and my brother wasn't there. It was just my older sister who lived at home, and my dad and my mum. And so 8 o'clock came. Oh, they cooked me dinner. So I had dinner on my own, obviously.
Obviously. Yeah.
In the dining room with a bookcase full of ministry books on one side, and then the picture of all the leaders on the wall on the other side. And I was thinking, okay, just,
Yes. I seem to remember messaging you about that time, and you just said it's just a bit surreal. I'm sitting here. It was just surreal, wasn't it? Yeah.
Surreal, completely surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I was due to go, and so I braced myself and I said, when can I come again? And he said, you can come and go whenever you want. You should feel free to have as much access to mum as you want while you're there. And I was just so shocked, and you could see the expression of shock on my face. And he said that he discussed me coming with the priests, and they were impressed at that I decided to come like that, and that I should be free, be able to see mum whenever I wanted. And they felt bad and sorry for what had happened to me, that I'd been treated very badly, and that that whatever they could do to help me at this time, they wanted to do that. So that just set off an incredible 2 weeks. I quickly found that I could be very useful with my medical background, with getting mum access to a GP and calling for the nurse, the community nurse, and setting those sorts of things up. The second day I was usually around there from 9 in the morning, and then stayed until after Dad and my sister had got back from the meeting. Because that meant while I was there as well, I could look after mum, and they could go to the meetings, which they were really grateful for. The second day, we were waiting for the district nurse, and the doorbell goes. I said to my mum, it's a district nurse, I'll go and answer the door. And this opened the door, and this woman all in black with a big bow on her hair, and I'm thinking, no, that's not the district nurse.
not with a token like that.
And she said, so hello, Helen. You must be Helen. And I said, yeah. She sort of looked at me as though I should know who she was. And she said, and I had no idea who she was, never seen her before. And she said, I'm Sarah. And okay. And then the penny dropped, and I realised I was standing in front of my sister-in-law, who's been married to my brother for 30 years.
And you didn't know?
But that was, I didn't know. Had no idea who it was. It was just that when she said Sarah, and I knew that my brother had married a Sarah, and I thought, must be. It couldn't. It just assumed it was, and of course it was.
Yeah.
So she just said, "Where's mother?" Where's mother? So I said, oh, she's upstairs, and she just went upstairs, and I just left them to it. Also, then Dad said, what are you doing on Thursday? And I said, well, I think I was going to see a friend of mine in Cambridge in the morning. So I said, but I'd be back at midday, but I could even cancel that. He said, no. He said, I just wondered because there's a Brethren seminar I want to go to with his sister. So, but we'll be back late. Would you be able to stay and look after mum? I said, yeah, of course, no problem at all. So Thursday came, and they were getting ready to go, and Dad said, we'll be back late, maybe not till 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, that's fine. I said, all good. I'm here. He said, he said, go and lie down in the spare room, and have some sleep, until we get back. And he said, if you're still asleep when we get back, I'm just going to leave you there. So I thought,
wow.
So got mum all sorted with the meds, and she was all good. She and yeah, it was quite strange being in my parents' house. There was another bookcase, and there was all our childhood books.
Was it the same house? Your childhood home?
No, it's a different house.
So they'd moved house. So it wasn't like your childhood bedroom.
No. That would have been very strange. Yeah,
it would have been. Yes.
Yeah. But they had a bookcase, all our childhood books that I remembered as a child, picking them out. And there's one that I put my name in, and I did some colouring. And I'm thinking all the time that's gone on between since I last held this book. It was just incredible.
Probably
really,
hugely emotional in a way.
Yeah, it was. It really was.
The circumstances are such that there's been some 30 odd years from when you were in that situation to now. And it wasn't like you'd been going back to that home and you'd seen those books regularly, it must have been
Yeah.
quite strangely disturbing, I imagine.
It was, it
Way.
was, it was,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah, it was. They got back. I sort of, so I did go, went and lie down in the spare room, and slept a little bit, dozed really. 3:30, they turned up.
It's
They got
almost
back,
nightclub
and
time.
yeah. So,
Yes. Yeah.
so I thought I'll go. I'm awake. I'm just gonna, So I go downstairs. I say hi. Did it all go well? Did you have a good time? Mum's fine. She was very comfortable last night. She's asleep. I'm gonna go now. And my dad said, "Oh, what do you mean you're going?" And I said, "I'm going. I'm awake. I'm going to get my car, go. I'll leave you to it." He said, "Oh no, you're not. No, back to bed. You're not going. You're not leaving at this time. Back to bed."
Always the father, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I did want to go, so I said, "Okay then." So yeah, I went back into the. I spent the night at my parents' house for the first time since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I woke up at about 7:30, and I decided I'll just leave and go back and to my and just get out, because it was it was a surreal experience, and I was ready to go back.
I mean, looking back on that experience, because again, to explain to people how enormous that would have been, obviously, once you leave, you're barely allowed inside families' homes, let alone spend a night there. And what you're describing there is a situation, as I say, that's bordering on normal, in that you've got a very ill mother and children rallying around to help her, and they allowed you to be part of that. Looking back on that now, you must be very grateful for that.
Yeah. Oh, incredibly grateful for that. It was just something that was really special. It would never happen again.
No.
But it was really special at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very, very grateful.
I think what I would want to say, to me, it comes out the same thing we always say, that's how it should be. It doesn't matter that you're not part of the brethren and they are. That's fine. We respect that. And I had not the same, but a similar experience when my brother out the brethren was critically ill, very critically ill. The relationship I had with my brother in the brethren at that point in time was as if there were no barriers. And it's something I treasure. Unfortunately, it changed once the crisis had passed. And I wonder if, from the brethren's perspective, you say your father talked to the priest and everything, and they all said, yes, it's fine. Or, he felt he had their blessing to let Helen into the family fold. I wonder if there's an element of the brethren that when there is a crisis point with extreme illness, the guards are allowed to come down. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's very much an individual thing. I think the way that I was able to have so much input was probably because of that growing relationship I'd had over the years.
Yes.
And if I hadn't have had that, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh, this is what I want to do," I don't think it would have happened like it did. I also think it was really helpful having that medical background. So I was able to do so much navigation for them. I was always doing the whole 2 weeks I was there. I was constantly on the phone trying to, either speak to the doctor or speak to the hospice or speak to the community services. 2 days later, on the Saturday, I was getting ready to come over, and my dad called me at 9 a.m. and I was literally just about to leave and get in the car to drive over, and he said, "Are you coming over today?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, I'm coming over." He said, "Can you come round? Mum's really not well. I've just called the emergency GP." And so when I got there, spoke to the GP, we called an ambulance. Mum was really not good at all, not keeping anything down. The ambulance finally came. I think I called them about 2 or 3 times. Finally came. Mum got in the ambulance, and I followed behind in my car because I wanted to be able to get away and just if I needed. And at the end of the day, went straight to emergency department where she was, and we were there for a few hours. But even there, I was able to talk to the doctor, make sure she had her medication, her pain relief. When she was going to be going up to the ward, asking for a single room and being precious about it. But you want your best for for your family when they're in hospital, and being able to navigate those all those aspects was really good. And I stayed very late, and I talked to the nurses on the ward and the on-call doctor who came up, just making sure everything was in place and Mum was comfortable. Dad had come in as well during the day, and I'd sent him home because he was really tired. And Dad said to me, when you leave, can you call me? Just give me an update. Can you call me? I said, yes, no problem. So I left at about 9 o'clock, I think, and I got to the car. I phoned my dad, gave him an update, and then he turned around to me and said, look, I'm going to ask you something, and you don't have to. You really don't. You don't have to do this. It's entirely up to you. There is absolutely no pressure. He said, but would you like to come to a meeting tomorrow?
Gulp.
Every bone in my body said, no, I do not want to go to a meeting, thank you. But I found myself just holding back and just saying, because it was an incredibly long emotional day and I was tired, and I just thought I just need to, and I said, look, let me think about it. I'll speak to you tomorrow. He said, yeah, no problem. He said, honestly, he said, there's just no pressure, and you don't feel that you have to, or there's anything underlying around that request. So I spoke to my husband that evening, and I said, you never guess what I've been asked. And he said, well, you've got to go. He said, you have, and my husband's never been in the Brethren. And he said, but he said, you've got to go. You've got to show them that despite everything they did to you, you've made it, and that you're happy, you're healthy, and you're well you're put together. And that you've made a success of life outside. And he said they need to see that they didn't break you. And I spoke to another couple of friends, and they said, why on earth would you put yourself through that? Which is what I was thinking at the time. Why do I want to? So the following morning, I was meeting with Pam, who was my best friend from school, who went to live with after I left the Brethren. I was meeting her to walk her brother's dog in the park, and I talked all about that to her, and she said exactly the same as Paul said, that you've got to go, you've got to show them, you've got to, that you've made it, that you've done really well outside, and you've succeeded. And I said, yeah, but they're going to make me wear a headscarf. I just know it. I just know they're going to make me wear a headscarf. I just can't do that. So she said, but you think about it. She said,
that would be my biggest stumbling block, Helen. Putting a headscarf on again. Watson and Gilly wouldn't understand. You'd have to get it straight, wouldn't you? You don't. Yes. Carry on. It's been years.
So I said, yeah, I'm going to have to wear a headscarf, and she said, but then, Helen, if you think about it, she said, you go to a mosque, you'd be respectful, you'd wear a head covering out of respect. If you went to a temple in Thailand, you'd cover yourself up. And she said, this is just think of it like that. It's their custom, it's their practice, it's respecting their church and what they So she sort of convinced me that that could be. And by the time midday come up, which was my deadline to tell my dad, I called him and I said, okay, all right, I'll go. I had no idea if I was making the right decision. Went to see Mum that afternoon, and my dad popped in and said to my mum, has Helen told you? Has she told you that she's going to a meeting this afternoon? And my mum was just like biggest smile. She said, I never thought I'd live I never thought I'd see the day that would happen.
Makes you realise how important it was to them. That's amazing.
Yeah, incredibly important.
It was incredibly important.
Yeah. Even though they knew that there was me, I'd never go back. This was not, and it never felt like it was a recruitment process that I was going back.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have gone to any other meeting, any other locality. But the fact that this was one that I went to when I was a child and grew up in, I'd be seeing people that I would remember. So after that stage, we went back to my parents' house, and my sister said, what colour is your dress? I said, blue. She said, do you want a blue headscarf? I said, that would do. Do you want any wadding? No, I definitely don't want any wadding.
So if I pause there and explain about wadding to people that have never been in a brethren, when we were in Helen, and I think they still do, there was a custom to put like sort of wadding in the headscarf to give it height and to make it look bigger and so on. And it almost became a competition, the shape of your wadding. I
Yeah,
seem to remember when we
yeah,
were
yeah,
teenagers, wasn't it? It was
absolutely.
I don't know if it's the
It
same
was.
now or not. Maybe more recently
It
this could
is.
come. It
It
is the
is.
same, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely is,
Yeah.
because they were wearing with their wadding when I went.
Yeah.
So, so I put this headscarf on, and I went and I said, I need to go to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, I took I took a selfie because I thought I will not believe. I'll just think this was a dream that I. And so I took a selfie of me in the bathroom.
Yeah.
With this headscarf on. My sister told me what was going to be what would happen. So we drive up. We go into the side entrance. We go and sit in one of the back rows. So just be us on the road. There'll be rope. We'll be roped off either side. So there'll be. She said it'd be roped off either side. She said we'll have the service. After that, she said there might be maybe a peep or two might want to come and speak to us afterwards, maybe not, but we'll then wait for people to leave, and then we'll go out the same way we came in the car and we'll drive home. And I was really happy. I was so happy she did that, because I could then sort of get my head into the process of how it was going to look. And I made the decision not to be an active participant in the meeting. I would not say any amens. I would not sing any hymns. I would not. Nothing. I just didn't want to. I was not going to participate. I had my mum's Bible and hymn book, which used to be her mother's, so I thought that was a bit of a connection there. And we ended up getting going, and it was exactly how my sister said. I had my sister and my dad on either side of me, and as the brethren came in, they all looked over at me and sort of nodded and smiled, to us. And the service was as, what do you say, uninspiring as they always are.
Yeah. What sort of meet? Was it a reading meeting or a preaching meeting?
No, a preaching. So there are three preachings.
Three preachings, as is tradition.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the preachings was my nephew, who I hadn't yet seen. So that was surprising. Yeah, he's quite young.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you think? I mean, obviously we can't know, but do you think they got your nephew to preach specially just because you were there?
No, I did wonder that as well, but no, I don't think so. I don't think they'd had enough notice, and also he spoke to me afterwards and said if he'd have known I was coming, he's made some comment about, if I'd known you were coming, I'd have, done a special preaching or something. So no, I don't think so.
Okay.
So the meeting finished. It was pretty full, and I thought, okay, well, we'll be going out in a minute. So then what happened is all these brethren, I think it felt like almost everybody in the meeting room sort of lined up wanting to speak to me. And it was all the same thing. They wanted to know a bit about my life. What are you doing? Where are you living? What are you doing now? You got a family? How many children I have? What are they doing now? What does your husband do? Thank you so much for coming. It's so good. I hear you've been really great help to your mum. So good to see you. And it was really like that. And then I asked about their family, especially the ones I knew, who's married who and what they're doing. And then I heard Helen down the back, and I turned around, it was one of my best friends in the Peeps. Oh, that was so amazing. I just wanted to hug her, but it wasn't really appropriate sort of thing you do in a meeting. And I loved talking to her. She had 6 kids, I think, and just learning about their lives. And then I heard my dad say, Helen, and and he wanted me to talk to more Peeps that were coming up. And he was loving it. He was just loving it.
It's almost like you were a kind of celebrity within that meeting at that point in time, isn't it? I'm trying to sort of get my head around what that would have meant to them, and but yeah, it's almost like this is celebrity lining up to talk to you, and
it was unbelievable, absolutely. It was actually quite nice, because these were all people that I'd known, and
Absolutely,
I
grown up
recognised
with.
most of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The children were now adults, and the adults that I knew were now sort of old people.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
really quite interesting. And then finally, it was time for us to go, and we got out into the foyer, and we were just saying, "Oh, thank goodness! Oh my goodness!"
Mm.
I was so nervous about all that, and my dad said, "Well, you hid that well. I would never have any idea you were nervous." So, we had a bit of a sort of nervous laugh as we walked out
Mm.
towards the car. We go outside of the meeting, and again, I hear Helen, Helen, and I
Mm.
turn around, and it's one of the priests who shut me up, standing
Mm.
there with his wife, and he said, Helen, you reached out to me a few years ago, wanted to speak to me, and I never got back to you. I never wrote back. I never saw you. I never spoke to you. And I'm so sorry. And I'm here to say now, I'm so sorry for what we did to you and for shutting you up. And I said, and I was just so taken aback. I had
Yeah, I
my
bet.
dad and my sister there as well. And his wife was saying, "Yeah, we're so sorry." And I'm thinking, "Well, what are you?" I feel like saying, "Well, what are you sorry about? You didn't shut me up."
Yeah.
It's just like this sort of collective responsibility for it. So I just said, thank you, but I've had a really great life, and I've done really my life outside. I've been really blessed with the life I've got, and I'm so happy that I made that decision to come out. I said, but I never wanted to lose my family in the process. And he said, I'm just so sorry. And he kept sort of repeating, I'm really sorry, we shouldn't have done that, and we shouldn't have shut you up. I mean, at the back of my mind, it was nice to have the apology and an apology in person, which is what I had sought like 10 years previously. But I do also think at the end, well, I wanted to leave. It's not as if,
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of sort of conflict there, I guess, in me, that yes, I wanted, I never wanted to lose my family, but you always know that is you grow up knowing it's going to happen. You're not going to be able to have freedom and your family. It's always one or the other.
But that's the
Yeah.
whole crux of the problem, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
and that's why
yeah.
we do these podcasts and everything. It's as you said it there, Helen, you can't have freedom and your family. And that's the bit that I would challenge from the, say to the brethren, why not? Because
yes,
freedom, if somebody chooses that the brethren lifestyle is not for them, that doesn't mean we disrespect it. That doesn't mean that we, think it's awful. It's just not for us. But why do we have to lose our families in the process of doing that? What is it? We're not there. As you said, when you were with your family, all the time you were respectable. You wore the headscarf to the meeting. You ate your meals separately. You didn't try to break those traditions that they've got, because we respect that. But all you want is the relationship with our families. And I think that's the whole crux of why we do these podcasts, why we get the stories out there, and what we would all want as a result of this.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, families are just everything. And so that was just a bit of it was quite an event.
How did you feel after, though? You must have felt drained.
Yeah, very much so. We finally got in the car to drive home, and I said to my dad, I said, was I all right? Because I don't know if I talked too much, if I didn't talk enough, I didn't, I was sort of very hyper aware that I wanted to give a representation of myself and also of my family. I wanted my dad to not to feel embarrassed, about me. And I said, was I all right? Was that okay, Dad? And he said, I said, you're wonderful. And he was just so happy, and even my sister smiled. She didn't smile much, but she did smile as well. And
wow.
I took my headscarf off in the car because I thought, I don't wear this. It's not me. So whereas brethren don't take their headscarves off in the car, but I made a point of taking my headscarf off in the car. We got out, and they asked me if I wanted to come in for something to eat, and I said, no, I'm good. I'm a bit tired. I'll go back. But I actually went to the pub, and I had had a couple of large glasses of wine.
I bet you
meal there.
just to try and process what had happened, really. And also
Yeah. Oh,
seeing all those people that you hadn't seen for 30 odd years. I mean, I remember at my mother-in-law's funeral, one person came up and said to me, "Hello, Jackie, how are you?" We were at the graveside. And I hadn't got a clue who they were until they said their name, because it's been 30, 40, and you
yeah.
think you've
Yeah.
changed beyond recognition, you know. But yeah, it's sort of processing all that, isn't there? Isn't
It
it?
really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It was yeah. There was a lot to process in that, and I really sort of questioned whether or not I'd done the right thing in going, and I was thinking, I just hope there's no fallback. I hope there's now not a sort of recruitment drive to get me back, but there never was, and there never
Yeah.
has been, and it's never been mentioned. And over those 2 weeks that I was there, I had it was such an intense period, that every day spending hours with my mum and my dad, and by the end, I remember so that was on Sunday. Then by the Tuesday, when I went to see my mum, was still in hospital that day. I think I went to see a friend of mine on the Monday. Then Tuesday I was back, and mum had been discharged from hospital, and I went back. So I went to see them, I think about 4 o'clock. I think I turned up on Tuesday, and mum was downstairs, and that was really great, because that was the first time I'd seen her being able to be downstairs with dad. I was sitting on the sofa, and my sister was there, and we just spent the whole afternoon, then into the evening, just laughing and talking, remembering. Do you remember when we did this? Oh, do you remember when this happened? And it was just a normal family evening. I will never forget that, because that was the last time I saw mum well enough to be able to, converse and talk like that. It was a really, really special day. Because then on the Wednesday, then she started to deteriorate again, and became in a lot of pain. I spent a lot of time talking to my dad in that period as well, up until I left. I left, I think, on the Friday or the Saturday. And nothing was off limits. I was able to talk and ask him about almost anything. And I did. And he got all the photos out. We flipped through all his photo albums and on his computer as well. And he said, "Is there any there that you want?" And so I picked out a handful of ones that I really, really loved, that he'd gone through, and he sent those to me. And then on the last day, my brother had been bringing around, he's got 6 kids, he'd been bringing one around almost every day, to meet me. I don't know why I didn't just bring them all down in a job lot, but no, it was every day. And it's one of his daughters who just had a baby, married and just had a baby. They came around on the last day, and she came in, she gave me a big hug, and she said, "Yeah, go and see, Auntie Helen." So had held the baby, and then Dad said, "Would you like some photos with Mum and with baby and your niece?" And so we had quite a few photos. In fact, my dad used my iPhone. He put as he was taking a photo, he put it on burst, and so we got like 100 photos at once, which is lovely. And I've kept every single one of those 100 photos. So that was really nice. But yeah, and then I was getting ready to go and get back to the airport, and I knew it wouldn't be long. Mum didn't have much time at all, and I think anybody else would probably have thought, well, I'll just delay my flight because I want to be here. I don't think we're going, but I feel bad, but I wanted to go home. I think I'd reached emotionally the limit, and I think maybe they did as well. It was very intense.
You say it's intense because obviously your mother has sort of reached the stage of palliative care, but I think having the whole brethren background there puts a different level of level of intensity on it, because you must have been, I imagine if it were me in that situation, I'd be worried all the time about overstepping the boundaries. and suddenly having the shutters come down. You obviously didn't,
Mm.
and that's credit to
Mm.
you, or your family
Mm.
were receptive. But that would always be
Mm.
the worry, wouldn't it? That you've just gone that
Yeah.
little bit too
Yeah.
far, and they say, right, Helen, I think you need to leave now.
Mm.
There's always that at the back of your head, isn't there?
There is. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, there were a few sort of odd moments, Dad made me a cup of coffee one day and I was drinking it in the bedroom because I used to just lie in the bed or sit next to Mum every day. So usually how I spent time with her. And so he came up with a cup of coffee for me, and Mum was just about to take a tablet. And she said, "Oh, well, I can't take this tablet if Helen's going to have a coffee." I said, "Dad, take the coffee away." Mum needs to have
I don't need the coffee.
I don't need the coffee.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, that's not eating. That really isn't eating.
No. But it shows how
Yeah.
ingrained that is in their
Yeah.
psyche, doesn't it? The eating,
Mm.
drinking thing, that she didn't feel prepared to swallow a tablet while you were sipping your cup of coffee. And we can respect that. Whatever we think, we can respect that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, the time came for me then. So my niece and the baby went, and it was just time with my mum. And Mum said some really precious words to me. She said, "I'd love to stand up and give you a hug, and give you the biggest hug." And I said, "You don't need to stand up." I said, "We can hug. You can hug me now." So I just reached her while she was in bed, and we just hugged and embraced, and we were both crying and very tearful. We knew that we would not be seeing each other again. And I left. And Dad just brought me to the car and just said, "Thank you so much." And I gave him a letter, a card with a letter inside that I'd written to Mum. So can you give that to Mum after I've left? There were just some thoughts and just some, whatever.
Yeah.
As I got in the car and I turned, and Mum had got herself out of her bed, and she was at the window, waving me off. And she was stood at the window for as long as I could see her as I drove away. And I thought that must have taken such incredible strength that she wanted to see me before she so I got back, and Mum passed away 2 weeks later. I think it was about 2 weeks later. And in those 2 weeks, Dad had almost daily contact with me, with either phoning or emailing. There were times where I would call and he was next to Mum, and I'd say, "Can you pass this message on to Mum?" And then he'd pass another one back to me on the phone. And when she did pass away, he called me about an hour after she passed away, which I really, really did appreciate. I guess I was, because I've had all that contact, I guess afterwards I was expecting maybe not my dad, but maybe other members of the family or other people to just check in and phone me and say, "Are you okay? Are you doing all right?" I know you live miles apart, but nobody did. Nobody reached out.
That's interesting.
And I just thought, yeah.
That is interesting.
You'd
You'd think maybe one of your siblings might have sent you an email to say, I mean, are you okay? That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an incredible story, Helen. I mean, I defy anybody not to have a tear in their eyes. You're talking there, but it's an incredible story in the circumstances of the background where we all come from, because it's normality when you've got a parent who is terminally ill, isn't it? The coming together of the family, being able to say those precious things. And it's something that's been denied to a lot of people that have left the brethren. And it's wonderful you've had it. And I think I would say, again, that's what we want. We want that normality. We do. We want to be able to express, to be able to say the things, not at the point of a parent being, terminally ill, but that just through life, being able to have that be able to express how we feel about our family, being able to be part of them with respect for their faith.
Completely.
And it's just really lovely that we can get out there, and for insiders listening, that here is a story where somebody outside the brethren was able to be very much part of that family journey at a very sad time. And you know what? Nothing awful's happened because of it. It's okay, isn't it?
Exactly.
You can involve them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is. And sometimes you have to play the long game. You know,
Yes.
it took me 20 years from time of leaving to having any contact with my family.
Yeah.
And then when we started off, it's like it was overload. It's like I wanted so much more, so did they, but we couldn't
Yes.
have it. So it was
Yes.
almost, you know, being in a
Yeah.
sweet shop, but actually not being able to, you know, buy anything, you know,
Yeah.
eat anything in it. But we settled into a bit of a rhythm. And I think
Yes.
it's not going to be completely what you want. It's not
No.
going to be completely what they want, but it's enough. And I
Yeah.
think that sometimes, as outside, you know, being outside, being ex-peeps, we have to sometimes settle for, you know, enough, just
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
That's
Just enough to keep.
yeah.
And it's also, I know for myself, when you leave the brethren, there's a huge fear of rejection from your family because you've had it once. So you feel if you reach out, you're going to have that rejection.
Yeah,
And we shield ourselves from that
yeah,
sometimes. And I know I'm guilty of this. You shield yourself from it because you do not want to get hurt again and you do not want the door shut in your face again. But maybe sometimes the onus is on us to try. It's hard, isn't
yes,
it? It's
it
really
really
hard
is.
because, you know,
Yeah.
you've had all that hurt, you've been shut out of their lives,
Mm,
you've been told to
mm.
go, you've had years of not seeing them. But maybe the onus is, and I know many of us do, on us to try to keep that relationship going. So we try to show our doors always open. But as you say,
Yes,
it won't always be the relationship we want. But
no.
yeah,
You have to find a sort of comfort factor, I think,
yes,
somewhere in the middle. And because your lives are sometimes so complete, I mean, my life is so completely different to theirs.
yes,
There is those sort of disconnect. I remember the first time they came around to our house. This was, you know, 2002, I think, the first time, and I was thinking, what are we going to do with all the TVs we've got in the
yeah,
house?
yes,
I felt really embarrassed. I felt embarrassed. I didn't know what
yeah,
to do. I didn't want to feel ashamed, and I thought,
yes,
no, you know, this is how we live, and
this is
I'm
our
going to put my
life.
jeans. I'm going to put my jeans on, and I'm going to put my earrings in, and this is
Mm,
how we are. And
mm.
they've got to understand. And they were brilliant. I remember they were sat in my living room, this big TV in the corner, and they were great. They were really good. They just, you know, they were
Yeah,
just it pretended it wasn't there, and we didn't talk
yeah,
about it, and obviously we didn't have
yeah.
it turned on.
No,
Yeah.
no. But they must feel, you know, if thinking of your parents' perspective, that there must be a curiosity about your life. As in, you
Yeah,
know, if you've got somebody outside of it and you think inside and you have that concept, there must be an element of curiosity, wanting
yeah,
to know, because it is, as you say, so very, very different from their life. And it's interesting you say when you went to the meeting that people were saying, well, what are you doing now? And how many children do you have? So there is that element of curiosity,
yeah.
isn't there?
There
Yeah.
really is. Yeah, yeah. Especially things around our children. They're
Yeah.
absolutely fascinated with what our kids doing, what they're studying,
Really?
what they're doing for work, and they're
Yeah.
really, really interested in that. They see our children. I think this is probably not just unique to my parents, but they see our children as being very innocent of the whole thing. It's not their.
Yes.
It's never been their choice that they are not in their brethren. So I
Yeah.
think they sort of see them as, they should have been in the brethren, but they're not, and that's not their fault.
Yeah.
They're sort of
Yeah.
quite blameless in that respect.
Yes. Yes.
They also really, my parents have also really liked Paul, my husband.
Mm.
They turned around on one visit and they turned around to him and they said, we just want to thank you for looking after Helen, for
Mm.
everything, and thank you so much. You've kept her safe. You've been so good, and you're such a good husband and father to the children. And we take a lot of comfort from that. I'm
Mm.
sitting there thinking, I don't need to be looked after. I'm not
Yeah. They obviously felt you did need to be Helen, so
yeah,
give them that
I
one.
didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. Really?
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. So, what's the relationship? I mean, obviously, that was what, 8, 9 years ago. Your mother passed
Yeah, that
away.
was 8 years ago. Yeah, well, when I was over there, I did get a phone call when I was driving off to Bury St Edmunds to see a friend of mine, from my sister, my younger sister, who was my best friend. The first contact I'd had
Mm,
since 1984, 85. So this, what was that, about 20, 30 years? 30
mm,
years, 30 years.
mm,
And I was driving. My parents had obviously given her my phone number. The phone the suburb comes up on the phone, and yeah, she wants to talk. I said I can't, because my head was just not in space to talk. So it could be an hour, and call me back. So on the hour, I remember driving for an hour. I was crying. I
You were
just
quite
couldn't
close
believe I was
to
going to speak
your
to her.
particular sister.
Very close.
Yeah,
Very,
as
very
growing
close.
up, I
Yeah.
remember you almost
Yeah,
like
yeah.
twins, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. We were.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did
yeah,
everything together. She was
yeah,
my very, very best friend, and
yeah.
yeah, I missed her terribly.
Mm,
But she had never been able to talk to her or see her or anything.
mm,
So she did. She called me back, and we had a 38-minute conversation, and we talked about everything. It wasn't really preachy. She said that she thought of me a lot, that she'd missed me over the years. We talked about her kids. She had three. I had three. Um, and it was just quite a nice phone call. And then I said, can I have your email so maybe I can send you some pictures? And she said, well, I don't really think I can give you that. And I thought, oh, after that's such a lovely conversation. But as you say, it's just the fear of rejection. Sometimes you don't want to ask. And I thought about it, even in the conversation. Shall I ask? Shall I not? I don't want to ask and her not. But I felt comfortable. I thought, oh, she'll probably give me her email. But no, she didn't. And she did call me again when I was at the airport. But it was just it also felt like she was making excuses to try and call me. Like she said, can you tell me where your son gets his school uniform from? I'm thinking, oh, that's not just a bit of a bizarre sort of question to ask. But about 6 months after my mum passed away, my dad called me, or emailed me rather, and to let me know that my sister, my younger sister, who's been my best friend, had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was just absolutely floored, and so was he, and so was the whole family been. And over those years, she reached out to me, just asking for various parts of advice for some of the treatments that she was having, which I was able to provide to her, get that information. I passed it on, and I think she found that really useful. I've been over to the UK several times since being in Australia, and every time I'd reach out and say, can I see you? And I'd just be left with blank. I mean, it wasn't a yes, it wasn't a no, just nothing. So I'd sometimes go through my dad, and he'd say, no, she doesn't feel that's something she can do. And so I just maintain, email contact with her with occasional phone calls as well. Last year she deteriorated and got very sick, and the cancer progressed quite considerably. So I reached out to her, and I copied in my dad. And I said, can I please come over? Almost like, Mum, can I come over? Can I look after you? Can I just spend some time with you? Because I knew that she wasn't going to recover. I mean, the cancer was terminal, and I desperately wanted to see her while she wasn't really sick. Maybe, when she was a little bit better, that we could spend some time together. Even if we could just see for a day, that would have been enough for me. There was a bit of to and fro, but then my dad came back and said she said no. She said no, Helen. And then my sister emailed me and she said, thank you, but I've got all the help I need. It's very kind of you to ask, but I don't need you to come all this way. And I've got all the help, so it's a no. And I didn't feel I could do the same, jump on a plane and just, I didn't have that relationship and connection. I hadn't had that like I had with my mum. And my dad made it quite clear that, it's just not something she wants, and not to do it. So I wrote her a letter, an email, and just said, look, I'll leave that offer on the table. It's not a once only offer. If you change your mind, you just need to reach out and I will be there. She started deteriorating in November, I think it was. I sent her, she was very, very sick and gone into hospital, very weak. And I sent her, it was like almost like a final email where I really sort of poured my heart out, just reminiscing about the times that we enjoyed as kids and how much I loved her, how much I still thought about her, how I wish, things had been different, but, I have to accept that, our lives are our lives, and, to that effect. And it was almost like a bit of a goodbye. And my dad kept in contact with me very, very frequently all through December with updates and let me know how she was. And then when she passed away, he let me know a couple of hours after she passed away, on New Year's Eve. And I was absolutely devastated, because all of a sudden that opportunity to ever see her was gone forever, forever. And I think that's the most devastating, the most devastated I think I felt for a long, long time. I was sad, very sad when my mum passed away, but I had such amazing time with her leading up, and not to have that was just absolutely heartbreaking. So I went back to my photos. All those photos I took at the age of 10 with my photo albums. There was lots of photos I took of her, of us together. She featured a lot of photos, and I was so thankful for that. I scanned one weekend, a couple of weekends after she passed away, I scanned every single photo I had of her, and I made a digital album of with all her photos in here. And
how lovely.
So all of these of us growing up, and I sent it to my dad. I emailed it the digital copy. He absolutely loved it, and I said I'm happy to get the hard copy, and maybe her husband would like one, but maybe you cannot reach out. And he said he'd love one. They loved it, absolutely loved it. They've shared it with they've shown it to all the rest of the family. It means a lot that I've got that. But I feel really good that they've enjoyed having it too.
And nice for her children to have that as well. If you've lost your mother at a relatively young age, it's nice to have that sort of memoir to look back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But a fascinating contrast between the experience you had when your mother was so ill and your sister, and you wonder why, don't you? You wonder. I mean, we could analyze it. We don't know why. This is the bottom line, isn't it? But you wonder why your sister was reluctant, for whatever reason, for you to be with her, whereas your mother was different.
Yeah, the only way that I can put it down to is when I was over visiting my mum, and I had that first phone call with my sister in a car park, I think Tesco car park.
Yes.
After not having any contact for 30 years, and she did say to me, I did say, why didn't you stay? I would so love to have seen you. Why didn't you stay? And she said it would just been too hard. She said I just couldn't. It was too hard. And I think that's why she didn't see me. It would have just been too hard.
It would have, and that's something that I think it's worth remembering. This principle of separation, it actually hurts our families inside as well as us.
It really does.
And I think that's worth remembering. I know you could argue that, particularly with the deed of variation that they adopted in their trust, it is the family's choice how much contact they have. But I think because of the separation is so ingrained over so many years, our families inside don't really realise or understand that they do have that choice, and certainly would be too frightened to exercise that choice. So maybe it was that it would have hurt your sister too much to have got close to you in those sort of last while. Maybe.
I think so. That's the only thing I can think about, put it down to, because there's nothing else that she said. She didn't give me any other reason as to why she wasn't able to do it. I do know that she, from all accounts, what I remember of her, and also her husband actually wrote to me a really, really lovely letter, or email, sorry, after she passed away. Really, really lovely email about her. And it does appear that she was the bossy one of the relationship, and she was always bossy from when I remember her. So I don't think it was because there was any sort of influence, or she was put under pressure not to see me. I think that was absolutely her decision. Yeah.
And as you say, possibly because she would have found it too hurtful. Which is just another reason why you realise. So the principle of separation hurts those outside, but it hurts those inside too. And yet it's, from our viewpoint, it's unnecessary. It's not needed in the extremes that they practice it.
Yeah. So in 2018, I was back in the UK. I met up with my dad, and I asked if I could go and see where Mum was buried, and so he took me to met him. We went to the cemetery. The Brethren, it's in the Brethren cemetery. It's
Okay.
like attached to the meeting room. I'm just trying to think where it is. I can't remember. Yeah, it's attached to the meeting room. There's a sort of, it looks like a garden with a fence around, and then he had to make arrangements to meet the key holder, some brother who had the keys to there, so we had to wait for him to turn up, and then he unlocked it, and then we were allowed inside, and he had to stay there until we'd finished. My children were with me, and they just said it was just the most strangest, surreal place. You know, it's just not something you would expect. I mean, to me, nothing the Brethren do is odd.
Yes. Yeah, to all of us, that's true, Helen. Yeah. Yeah.
So for them to have a graveyard, and then you can see Campus and Co. just a few meters away.
Well, it's just
quite
keeping
normal for
separate,
them,
isn't
you know?
it? Yeah. Yeah.
But they just found that their minds were blown that there was this cemetery behind this padlock gate,
Yeah.
you know, that nobody else could see. You would never know it was there. It was just like a fenced
Wow.
off area,
Wow.
with a high sort of 6-foot fence all around, wooden fence. You couldn't see through it. You would never have known it was there, and they just found it was just a bit spooky. Like I said, I just thought it was, well, that's the Brethren, you know, that's what they do, you know.
Yeah. I think you were quite honoured to be allowed to go in them, because I've heard of other ex-members who have been said, no, you can't, you know, go
Oh,
and
really?
visit. Yeah. So,
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that's the Brethren's last act of control is that they don't even allow you a place where you can go and grieve your loved ones,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
my dad's buried in a Brethren cemetery.
Is he?
Yeah, and I haven't been to see him. And I was really close to my mum, and she's going to be 90 next year, and I know that she'll be obviously buried next to him. So there won't be any place I can go and see
go
them.
and
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that, Ross, but it probably is, because
Mm.
my husband's parents are buried in a public cemetery. So, I mean, we don't often, but we can go and visit their grave. There's a little headstone there. But obviously, when they're in a Brethren cemetery, you don't even have that comfort, that, yeah, without having to go through the hoops and
There is so many, because I had to, you know, tell them a date and a time, and I could only go there with my dad, which was fine. I was very happy to go with my dad. But I couldn't go by myself. I couldn't just wander in, you know.
No.
It was all strictly controlled. And the other thing that I guess irritated me back in 2018 and that visit was, my older brother decided he was going to turn up. But I said, oh, he might turn up. I said, well, can you tell him to bring his youngest son, because he's the same age as our youngest, nearly, who will be there. It'll be so good. You know, all your children have met me, and it'll be lovely for them to meet the cousins. And I thought, even as I'm saying it, I was thinking, there's just no way he's going to do that. And sure enough, he turns up on his own. So I said, so where's so and so? And he said, oh yeah, so sorry, we couldn't come. You know, it's exam time, and he's just got to study for his exams. And I thought, come all the way from Australia. I know, all the way from Australia.
Yeah, he doesn't want him getting friendly with his cousin.
He does not. No, he doesn't. Absolutely,
just
doesn't.
in case.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience with my brother's daughters, actually, who are similar ages to my daughters.
Okay.
And it was in the sort of period of 2003, and when I asked, or maybe it was a bit later now, but anyway, I asked if they could meet up, and there was a definite, we're just not sure how far we should go, and they never did meet. They never did meet. So, never mind.
But no, I mean, since then, contact's been really great. My dad often sends me photos. He sent me a load of photos recently of me as a kid with my brothers and sisters, which was really nice. He was clearing out some things. He saw all these photos. Sometimes he'll go out for the week, you know, go up spend time with family, and he'll send me pictures that he took over the weekend, just chatty stuff, and this is where we went. I know that he loves if we go hiking or walking and I take some pictures of nature, he loves things like that. He loves to know where we've been and places that we visited. He loves travel. So there's things that we talk about quite a lot, because I know that he gets a lot of joy from that.
I mean, I find your story quite incredible, Helen, because over the last sort of 15, 20 years, it's come across that you've had, I'll use the word normal, whatever normal is, but you've had a relationship of some kind with your family, which a lot of us haven't had. And I suppose I would say, what would you say to people looking at it perhaps from your father and your siblings' perspective? What would you say to people inside that have got relatives outside about the level of relationship that you've enjoyed?
I just think it's just been so incredibly important. It's really has brought about some closure to the hurt and anguish that we've been through. As also being really mindful about thinking what your comfort, establishing a bit of a comfort level. There are things that I know are a no to discuss, and I don't talk about them. And my dad doesn't talk about them with me. And sometimes if we start broaching on those, subjects, he'll pull back and he'll say, I don't want to start, I don't want to get into this. And he'll often be the one, because, sometimes I can be, provoked sometimes, not intentionally, but I do sometimes get on a bit of a bandwagon over something, and he'll say, well, let's not go down that, let's I don't really want to talk about this, this isn't going to go anywhere. And so we both pull back. It's about respectful conversations, and that's what my dad, I think, and my parents have taught me in these preceding years. It's about having respectful conversations, about respecting difference. It's about really focusing on the relationship and what you feel comfortable talking about, but ultimately it's about human connection as well. I was fortunate to have such a lovely, really happy childhood. And so my parents were very loving towards me. And since I left and having that relationship since the review, that love that they've shown me has been exactly the same. I've never been made to feel like I'm inferior to my other brothers and sisters. They've treated me equally. And so from the insiders and how you treat your family that are out, it's about making sure that you don't bring all that baggage of separation around that and blame, and just remember that what they want is what you want as well, which is just to have a conversation and just with love. And that's it really is, I think, as simple as that. And you'll work out everything in between. But I think if you can establish some respectful communication, the boundaries will sort of work out by themselves. You don't really need to do a lot there. They'll naturally form, and then you'll naturally get that comfort level about conversations, about topics and subjects, about what you can ask for and what you can't. So you don't have those conflicts. And I would say to outsiders as well, looking to have a relationship with people, is that just respect that the ideology is unlikely to change with grassroots brethren. It's highly unlikely with a lot of them.
So you kind of you kind of take what you can get out of it, haven't you? And I think there are some people that, family, you obviously came from a family that was close and very loving. Some people that have left the brethren for whatever reason aren't that fortunate. And there may be instances where people don't actually want a relationship with their family, and that's okay. But there are many of us that do, and particularly parents that have got children in. So I'll totally reiterate that, reaching out from both sides would be... Yeah, for sure.
I think what really helped me is that I pushed really hard, and the review presented an opportunity, and I took it and I grabbed it, and I think my parents, and with my brother leaving at the same time, it gave us an avenue for contact, because he was only shut up at that time. So communication between my brother and my parents was frequent, and because he was living with us, I joined in, and
Yes.
so I sort of hooked
Yeah.
onto that. But I also think you've got to have willingness from both sides. If you don't have willingness from insiders, or you don't have willingness from outsiders, you're not going to. It's hard to make things happen
Yes.
by force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Helen, thank you so much for telling us an absolutely fascinating story. And I'm genuinely really pleased that you can have that level of relationship with your family, particularly, as you say, the story of when your mother passed is quite incredible. And giving us all food for thought, I think, Helen. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Until next time, bye.
How can you support Get a Life podcast? You can donate internationally via PayPal at www.paypal.me/getalifepodcast. PayPal also has a QR code that can be scanned. Or donate to our Get a Life podcast GoFundMe. If you're in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. Check out www.get-a-life.net for Get a Life merchandise, books, and ways to support or get support. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.